Sometimes the people who seem like they're above the law are the ones breaking it in the worst ways. They were rich, powerful, untouchable. For almost 100 years, the Murdaugh family ruled Acquiesce Corner off South Carolina like their own kingdom. They had deep roots in Hilligale world. 3 generations of them worked as top prosecutors, putting people behind bars while building a name that demanded respect. But behind the polished smiles and courthouse connections, something was very wrong. This isn't just some small-town drama. It's a twisted story of lies, greed, and murder that no one saw coming. A family that looked perfect on the outside was hiding secrets darker than anyone could imagine. And when it all started to unravel, the truth shocked the entire country. To really understand how shocking this case was, you have to know who the Murdaughs were in South Carolina. For more than 85 years, the family didn't just work in the legal system. They were the legal system. 3 generations of Murdaugh men, all named Randolph, held the top prosecutor job in the 14th Judicial District. That's 5 counties. And in those 5 counties, everyone knew the name. People even called it Murdaugh country. If you were in trouble with the law, the Murdaughs were the ones who could either make it go away or make sure you paid for it. Their influence didn't end at the courthouse. They ran a powerful law firm, too, built by the first Randolph Murdaugh nearly a century ago. Over time, it became known for big-money lawsuits, especially personal injury cases, the kind that win millions in settlements. It was the perfect setup, a family that could prosecute criminals by day and sue powerful companies by night. And through it all, they built a reputation that no one dared question. But every empire has cracks, and the Murdaugh legacy was no different. Because while the family looked like Southern royalty on the outside, not everything was as polished as it seemed. And when the 4th generation son, Alex Murdaugh, took the spotlight, things started to spiral in ways no one could have predicted. Alex had been living a double life, stealing from his law firm, scamming clients, and covering it all up with charm and connections. But the deeper you dig, the more disturbing it gets. His victims weren't just numbers on a balance sheet. Many were grieving families, injured workers, or people who trusted at their most vulnerable. And in 2021, that carefully crafted world came crashing down. In the most violent, unthinkable way, the first real glimpse into the chaos behind the Murdaugh name came on a chilly February night in 2019. Paul Murdaugh, the son of Alex and Maggie Murdaugh, just 19 years old at the time, was partying with friends on his family's boat. They had been drinking heavily, despite the fact that Paul was underage, and everyone knew he had a reputation for being reckless when he drank. But that night, his recklessness would end in tragedy. Shortly after 2 a.m., the boat slammed into a bridge piling near Paris Island. The impact threw several passengers into the dark, freezing water. One of them was 19-year-old Mallory Beach. Her boyfriend and friends searched frantically, screaming her name into the night. But Mallory was gone. It took search teams a week to find her body. The entire state of South Carolina mourned. Mallory was smart, kind, and full of life. And yet, almost immediately, whispers began circulating. People were already asking, would Paul Murdaugh be held accountable, or would his last name protect him? Police body cam footage from the night showed just how chaotic things were. The teens were injured, emotional, and terrified. But one thing stood out. None of them wanted Paul to talk to officers. They knew his family's name could change the outcome. And sure enough, Paul wasn't arrested that night. In fact, months passed before he was charged with boating, under the influence resulting in death, a car that carried serious time. But few believed he'd ever see a prison cell. And he never would, because before Hist got a trial, before Mallory's family could see justice, Paul was murdered, shot to death alongside his mother Maggie on the family's hunting estate. And suddenly, the boat crash wasn't just a local scandal anymore. It was the first domino in a much darker, deadlier story. The firearm you brought from inside the house. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I went and got it. This is a long story. Myson weighs in about Trekman's back. He's been getting threats. Most of it's been benign stuff we didn't take serious. You know, he's been getting, like, punched. I know that's what it is. Okay, when did you get home? Right when you called? Or did you go to the house first? Where's the house? I came to the house first. My mom has late-stage Alzheimer's, and at a Cynthia hospital. Okay. Onthanitoff June 7, 2021, Alex Smurdaf Medecheling 911 Calat, 10.06p. His voice Shukashi told police he had just found the bodies of his wife, Maggie, and his 22-year-old son, Paul. Okay, and are they breathing? No, ma'am. Okay, and you said it's your wife and your son? My wife and my son. They were both lying near the dog kennels on the family's massive hunting property, an estate so big it spanned over 1,700 acres in Islington, South Carolina. Actually, hold on. Some people just want the fire rescue might have some more sheets we can steal. That's right. It's Sholden Bebby private property. It belongs to no, I dissent. It belongs to us. Both had been shot multiple times, and what disturbed investigators even more, they were shot with 2 different guns. Whoever did this had come prepared, or maybe had access to more than one weapon. Alex told officers he hadn't been home at the time of the murders. He said he was visiting his mother, who suffers from dementia, but something about his story didn't quite sit right. And quietly, behind the scenes, the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division had already marked him as a person of interest from day one. As the investigation unfolded, the picture got darker. Prosecutors discovered that Maggie had been considering divorce. She had even met with a lawyer in Charleston just weeks before her death. But when asked about whether he had any arguments with his wife, Alex would say they didn't have much to argue about. Thank you. Y'all just make sure on that side, that's it. Nobody else. Slightly more confused now that was a suicide. How many pellets are normally in a buckshot? 10, 12. And as if that wasn't enough, investigators were also starting to untangle a massive web of financial crimes tied directly to Alex. He had been stealing millions of dollars from his own law firm, from clients, even from the grieving families he claimed to represent. Everything was unraveling. The motive? Prosecutors believed Alex killed his wife and son to distract from his exploding financials candle sand win back public sympathy. A desperate, twisty day tempto shift attention away from Thelius Sand fraud the Torah finally catching up to him. So in July 2022, Alex was officially charged with the murders. He pleaded not guilty. Mr. Murdoch, on June 7, 2021, did you take this gun or any gun like it and shoot your son Paul in the chest in the feed room at your property off Moselle Road? No, I did not. But in March 2023, after a trial that captivated the nation, the jury found him guilty on all counts. The next day, he was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole that when Alex Murdoch was convicted of murdering his wife and son. Many believe justice had finally caught up with the disgraced attorney. But the reality was that it was just the beginning of a show. Do you need any additional time to confer with Mr. Murdoch? He indicates he doesn't need to talk to me. It hurts my feelings, but we don't need any break. However, Your Honor, he does need to visit the restroom before we start this process. As of May 2025, Murdoch is buried under a mountain of legal trouble, 102 criminal charges across 19 indictments, ranging from financial fraud to narcotics. He's disbarred, his assets seized, and he's locked away for life. Yet, even from prison, the ripple saw fist screams continue to spread, touching the lives of the dead, the broken, and the betrayed. But this was just the beginning of the world, getting to realize how dark it was to be born in this world as Alex Murdoch. On a quiet summer morning in July 2015, the body of 19-year-old Stephen Smith was discovered on a lonely stretch of road in Hampton County, South Carolina, just 15 miles from the Murdoch family's Moselle estate. He was a promising nursing student, openly gay, and known for his bright spirit and ambition. But that July 8th morning would mark the end of his life and the beginning of years of whispers, doubts, and theories that still haunt the Low Country. Stephen's cause of death? Blunt force trauma to the head. But strangely, investigators quickly ruled it a hit-and-run accident, and Stephen's loosely placed shoes were still on his feet, details that didn't quite fit the typical hit-and-run narrative. From the beginning, something felt off. Even more intriguing, Stephen had been a high school classmate of Buster Murdaugh, the eldest son of Alex. As investigators talked to people in the community, a troubling theme kept emerging. Multiple individuals mentioned Buster's name in connection to Stephen. Some even claimed that Two had been involved in a secret relationship. In a small southern town where tradition runs deep, Stephen's openness about his sexuality made him a target for both admiration and also cruelty. But despite all the rumors, the case went cold, and for years, justice seemed out of reach. Still, whispers never stopped. According to the Greenville News, talk of a cover-up involving Sumion Clositov Murdoch family began to swirl, the island packet described the entire case as one that reeked of insider interference, raising eyebrows about how the investigation was handled and why certain leads were never followed. Then in June 2021, everything changed. As the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division was digging into the shocking double murders of Maggie and Paul Murdaugh, they stumbled upon new evidence related to Stephen Smith's case. Whatever they found was serious enough to reopen the investigation into Stephen's death 6 years after the fact. Fast forward to March 22, 2023. SLED finally made it official. Stephen Smith's death was not a hit-and-run accident. It was a homicide. The admission confirmed what many in Hampton County had suspected all along. Stephen had been murdered. Yet, as of May 2025, no one has been charged. Buster Murdaugh, whose name has been tied to the case again and again, issued a rare public statement. He strongly denied any involvement, calling the rumors baseless and stating that at the time of Stephen's death, he had been at the family beach house in Edisto Beach with his mother and brother, and said that you and Stephen were romantically involved. His brother says that someone approached him and says that you were with a group of young men who beat him with a baseball bat. What do you say to that, to both of those? Absolutely baseless rumors. I unequivocally deny anything that you just read off of that piece of paper. These rumors of my involvement with Stephen and his death are false, he said. So what really happened to Stephen Smith that night on a dark country road? Who killed him and why? Was it a hate crime, a tragic secret, or something far more tangled in the Murdaugh family's powerful web? The answers still haven't come, but one thing is clear. Stephen Smith's story isn't going away, and neither are the people demanding justice in his name. The crimes kept unfolding. In February 2018, longtime Murdaugh housekeeper Gloria Satterfield supposedly tripped over the family dog and fell down the steps. She lingered in the hospital for weeks before dying of a stroke. But here's the kicker. No autopsy, no coroner, and a death certificate that labeled the cause as natural. Her sons were awarded $4.3 million from the insurance payout. They saw none of it. Instead, Murdaugh, alongside his banker and lawyer, stole every last penny. In the courtroom, attorney Eric Blancoletta. Eventually, the Satterfield family recovered $6.5 million, but the damage was done. By 2023, Murdaugh was sentenced to 27 years in prison for this and other financial crimes that we will cover later in this video. His co-conspirator, Corey Fleming, was sentenced to nearly 14 years. While the banker escaped indictment buttoned scandal, his sawas fired a Mallory's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit, implicating Alexander Buster in providing alcohol to Paul. Soon after, allegations surfaced that Alex had coached the surviving teens to stay quiet and even steered them to a family friend as their lawyer to control the narrative. This case and the pressure it brought began to unravel the Murdaugh empire. Right before Maggie and Paul were killed, Alex was scheduled to hand over financial records. Maggie had hired a forensic accountant. Days later, both were dead. Coincidence or something more sinister? By September 2021, Alex Murdaugh's carefully crafted life of power, wealth, and prestige was starting to fall apart and fast. It all began on September 3, 2021, when Alex suddenly resigned from his family's powerful law firm, Peters, Murdaugh, Parker, Eltroth, and Dietrich, PMPD. Behind the scenes, his colleagues had confronted him over allegations of embezzlement and not just pocket change. We're talking millions of dollars. According to the New York Times, the financial discrepancies were staggering. That moment marked the crumbling of what one journalist called Alex Murdaugh's house of cards. The public began to watch, fascinated as the scandal spiraled into something darker than anyone had imagined. But the very next day, things took an even stranger turn. On September 4th, Alex called 911 from a rural South Carolina road. He said he'd been shot in the head while changing a tire. A mysterious truck had supposedly slowed down beside him. Someone fired a shot and then sped off. Alex survived, but just barely. His injury turned out to be a superficial graze, not life-threatening, and he was released from the hospital shortly after. Then came a public statement. Alex announced he was entering rehab for a long-standing opioid addiction, seeking treatment in Orlando, Florida. On the surface, it seemed like a man at rock bottom, but behind the scenes, investigators were already piecing together a much more calculated and bizarre story. Just 10 days after the shooting on September 14th, the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division dropped a bombshell. The shooter wasn't a random stranger. It was Curtis Edward Smith, a distant cousin, former client, and Alex's alleged drug dealer. But here's where the story takes a sharp, almost unbelievable twist. The shooting was staged. According to SLED, Alex had hired Curtis Smith to kill him, hoping his death would look like a murder and allow his surviving son, Buster, to collect a $10 million life insurance payout. Because Alex believed, mistakenly, that suicide would void the policy, he tried to engineer a fake homicide. In short, Alex wanted to die, but not by his own hand, and certainly not without leaving something behind for his only living son. Smith was arrested and charged with assisted suicide, aggravated assault, and insurance fraud. Alex, meanwhile, admitted to orchestrating the whole thing, citing massive depression and a deep addiction to oxycodone as the reasons behind his unraveling state of mind. But Curtis Smith didn't go quietly. He denied ever shooting Alex, claiming he never intended to kill him. In Smith's version of events, Alex was the one spiraling, and Smith simply fired a warning shot into the air to knock some sense into him, not to take his life. It had nothing to do with insurance fraud, he insisted. By November 4th, a Hampton County grand jury indicted Alex on 3 charges related to the botched assisted suicide scheme. But the damage to his credibility and the Murdaugh family name was already done. This bizarre roadside plot wasn't just a failed insurance scam. It revealed how far Alex Murdaugh was willing to go to escape the crumbling empire he once controlled. And for the public, it was yet another jaw-dropping twist in a saga that seemed to have no end. In June 2022, the state grand jury indicted Murdaugh for narcotics distribution. Over 8 years, Alexander Curtis Smith allegedly used stolen money, $2.4 million worth, to buy and distribute drugs across multiple counties. A prominent lawyer laundering drug money through fake accounts while his addiction spiraled out of control? It's hard to believe. But with Murdaugh, nothing is too dark, too twisted, or too depraved. Just when you think the story couldn't get any more disturbing, yet another voice stepped forward, adding a chilling layer to the already tangled web of Alex Murdaugh's alleged wrongdoings. In August 2022, a former sex worker from South Carolina named Lindsay Edwards came forward with horrifying claims during an interview with Fitz News, an outlet known for investigating South Carolina's political and legal elite. Her story isn't just shocking, it's deeply unsettling. Lindsay alleged that she first encountered Alex Murdaugh at a private party, the kind hosted in secret, attended by powerful local men, and flooded with drugs. What started as what she described a desaservice quickliter net violent, according to Lindsay. The situation escalated when Murdaugh began choking her during the encounter, and despite her desperate attempts to fight him off, scratching his arms trying to escape, he continued to rape her. Normally, Lindsay said, if things got out of hand, a bouncer working for her madam would step in and protect the girls. But that night was different. The madam didn't stop it. Why? Because she had what Lindsay called an exchange of services agreement with Murdaugh, meaning ispowering connections Gavahima pasted it ever have pleased, no matter how brutal, and it didn't end there. Lindsay went on to claim that this wasn't a one-time nightmare. She described at least 3 more encounters with Murdaugh, each one violent, each one forced. According to her, Themad Amanda Narmid bouncer Pushed Hiranithis sessions, there was no escape for her. These allegations paint a picture of predatory abuse enabled by those who were supposed to protect her and allegedly covered up by people who prioritized influence over justice. The South Carolina Law Enforcement Division is currently investigating Lindsay's claims, but as of now, no charges have been filed. Coming back to the financial frauds committed by Alex, for which on December 9, 2021, more criminal charges were filed. Investigators were now talking about a $6 million scam involving forged checks, fake settlements, and elaborate lies designed to funnel money into Alex's pockets while leaving his clients with scraps. Then came January 2022, another blow. The grand jury added 23 new charges, including the theft of over $2.6 million from clients like Natasha Thomas, Arthur Badger, Dion Martin, again, and the grieving family of Hakeem Pinckney, a deaf man who became paralyzed in a crash and later died under suspicious circumstances. Alex had supposedly arranged financial management for Hakeem's settlement, yet $800,000 to $1 million vanished. And then there was Russell Lafitte, a bank CEO. By April 2022, investigators said Murdaugh, Fleming, and Lafitte were all in on it, conspiring, covering each other's tracks, and robbing clients blind. By August 2022, another twist. Murdaugh was indicted alongside 2 more men, Spencer Anjuan Roberts and Jerry K. Rivers, for stealing nearly $300,000 from his own brother and former law firm. Yes, even his own family wasn't safe. In total, prosecutors believe Alex stole nearly $8.8 million from more than a dozen victims. And the way he did it, cold and calculating, he'd negotiate settlements for his clients, usually those who were poor, disabled, grieving, or uninformed. Then he'd pay them just enough to keep them quiet and pocket the rest. Some of his victims were minors, immigrants, and even families of the deceased. He even used money orders to an unnamed family member to launder the stolen money. On May 24, 2023, the U.S. Attorney's Office indicted Murdaugh on 22 federal counts: wire fraud, bank fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit both. They estimated $12.4 million stolen. Murdaugh agreed to another plea deal, this time facing up to 30 years in federal prison. But there was a catch. Had to tell the truth. And he didn't. Right before sentencing, federal prosecutors revealed Alex had failed a polygraph test, and that $1.3 million more in stolen money and 11 additional victims had been discovered. The judge didn't throw out the plea deal, but the punishment got harsher. On April 1, 2024, Alex Murdaugh was sentenced to 40 years in federal prison to run alongside Hist says 4 murderanth 27-year state sentence. He whistle sorta read to pay $8.7 million in restitution to 25 known victims, a small sliver of Fustus for lives permanently, altered by a man who once took an oath to protect them. So where does it all end? What started as he tragic murder so far and sung quickly unraveled into enough famous shocking scandals in recent history. Alex Murdaugh, once a respected attorney from a powerful Southern family, was exposed for a staggering list of crimes: financial fraud, drug addiction, staged suicide, money laundering, and more. And while the double homicide caught national attention, the deeper story revealed something far darker: years of lies, abuse of power, and victims who never got the justice they deserved until now. And here's the thing. It's easy to look at someone like Alex Murdaugh and think, well, that's just one bad apple. But stories like his make us wonder, how many others are protected by power and privilege, quietly getting away with things because no one's asking the right questions? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you've imeditis for, be sure to check out this next video. I think you'll enjoy it. Thank you and see again for watching.